Yeah, I can see.
Dominance, balance, brain.
Okay, so let me log off from the phone. All right, y'all bear with us for a minute. Can you move that for me, please? You can put it on the floor. Get this stationary. Hope I don't make y'all seasick with this twisting and turning that's about to happen. All right. Pull this up a little bit. Okay, get in here back. All right. So, listen, it's always something, but it's okay. You got to get in back. It's absolutely okay. We have our guest that is waiting to come in, Mr. and Mrs. DeFreitas.
Yes.
Super excited to have them tonight as a part of tonight's topic, which is so important, you guys. Thank you all for joining us tonight. You guys click like and click share. I know that what I was told is tonight is playoffs. I was like, oh, the Lakers. But it's okay. They can come back for the replay. It's all good. It's all good. I still think that this is a necessary topic that we will be talking about tonight. And yeah, it's crazy because I had to log on from my phone and my questions are on my phone, but it's okay. I also have them on the screen. I'll have them on the screen. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for coming on and being a part of tonight's show. A couple of weeks ago, we had a couple on that was dating with a purpose. We got some amazing news for y'all regarding them, but it's not my business to tell just yet. But you could probably imagine what I'm going to say. Anyway, no, she's not pregnant. Anyway, so again, I was just waiting a few minutes so that we can allow some of the guests to come in or viewers to come in before we bring in our guests for tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Ralph DeFreitas. They are going to be talking about divorce being a choice, an option. Sorry, divorce being an option, but they chose to stay. Divorce being an option, but they chose to stay. And so when we think about what is an option? An option means that you have more than one thing to choose from, more than one thing to pick from, right? So if you have something on the table, if you have I don't know, I'm gonna say burgers. If you have like the chicken burger and turkey burger and beef, you have options. You can choose either one. You can choose whichever one you want to. However, hopefully you're going to choose the one that you think tastes best to you. But with this topic tonight, they chose to hang in there. Although I know it's easy for us to just, throw in the towel.
Yeah, and just let it go.
Yeah, throw the towel in instead of grabbing the towel and wiping up what's spilled. And that's what I've been saying for the past couple of weeks. Yeah, you have a towel and you can throw it in, but let's use that towel to wipe up the things that have spilled in our marriage. And so what I want to do is I'm going to bring them on, let them introduce themselves to you, how long they've been married, how they've met. And we can go from there. Like I said, this was not what we planned on doing from the phone. But this is where we're at. So give me a second, you guys. I'm trying to find my guests. They are in here. Okay. All right. All right, Mr. and Mrs. DeFreitas.
Welcome.
How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Have you?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's an honor to have you both on here. And thank you so much for being available and saying yes, that you will talk about a topic that is can be a little scary, something that can be a little sticky, controversial, but you said yes. You said yes, you will come on and talk about your experience and your opinions about this. And so I want to say thank you, because not everyone will be willing to come on and talk about something of this magnitude, because either they're still trying to work through that thing, and that's fine if you're still trying to work through it, but sometimes working through it is talking about it, right? Sometimes working through it is having that open ear to hear what your spouse is saying, because many times when we are at each other's throat like this, we're not really listening to hear or to fix what is going on, what your spouse is saying. Okay, I feel like this, whether you agree or not. I think it is very important that we give them that opportunity to express that, and not only give them the opportunity to express it, but you give yourself the opportunity to hear it, to fix it, to work through it, to suggest some things that will make it better, right? And so, again, we say thank you for coming on tonight. Tell us, I'm just gonna go ahead and jump right in there, because we kind of got cut off a little bit in the beginning, but let the viewers know, how you met, how long you've been together, how you met, and how long you've been married.
Well, it's been 3 years and 9 months
Marriage.
of marriage.
We've been together a little over 4 years. So we met in Florida. We live in California, but we met in Florida. I was stationed in Florida training for a job. So Florida was home for me for 3 months. Can you hear us clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So Florida was home for 3 months. And long story short, I didn't go to Florida looking for a boo. I wasn't looking for a hookup or anything of that nature. I was there for work, and I was actually dating someone back in California. So again, I wasn't looking for a relationship. And long story short, I had a girlfriend who encouraged me to just get out and meet people. You're in Florida. It's your first time being there. You want to see as much as you can. It's home for 3 months. So make friends and get out. So my coworkers didn't want to go out. They live in Florida, born and raised. They don't want to go to the comedy club and the malls and all those things. So I took my friend's advice and got on a website to meet friends. Now, anybody who does dating and you do online dating, the very thing that you say you don't want is what you're going to get in your inbox. So I said, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm not looking for a fling. And it started off with flings and inbox pictures of things that I was not interested in. And Mr. hit my inbox very respectfully. He could spell. And there were just things that, I'm just being real. He could spell. He was very respectful. And so we started a conversation online. And long story short, we agreed to meet up. He knew that I was just visiting. I wasn't interested in, I told him some of the horror stories of the other guys. And so he was understanding. He was like, well, I'll show you around. This is home. So let's hang out. And so our first date was on the beach. We both love the beach. And we met up on a Friday, June 3rd, 2016, on the beach, and our date didn't end until Saturday, June 4th at 7 a.m. No hanky panky. No, we didn't go get a room or do nothing nasty on the beach. We didn't even kiss. We talked for hours and hours. I mean, we talked so long. At one point, he said, "What time is it?" It was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So, I mean, the conversation was that engaging that we lost track of time. And because the sun was going to be rising soon, he's like, "Well, let me take you to my spot where we can see the sun rise. Like, we're still here, we're still awake. Let's keep talking and let's watch the sunrise." And that was the beginning.
Love it. That's a great love story.
Yes, it is.
That's a great love story. So it's funny because he jumped into my my DM as well. Very very respectfully, yeah. But that's an amazing love story, you guys, of how you met. And so my question, since we are talking about, you know, divorce, and we're talking about options and what you chose to do, clearly you have an experience in that. But before we get there, I want to know, before you got married, did you guys partake in premarital counseling?
I mean, not officially. Mom, she went to school for it, so whenever she could, and she'd drop knowledge and just talk to us that way. But nothing official, not in courses or classes. And
Or anything with a pastor. We were not members of a church.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about it. We just at that time didn't have anyone that we could go to that we felt comfortable enough. If I can just add, so we met on June 3rd. On June 22nd, we were engaged. So things moved pretty quickly.
Wow.
7 months later, we were married. 3 months after meeting, he had moved to California and met my mother and met my grandfather and asked them for my hand in marriage. So things moved pretty quickly, but I think I took him through the ringer and he took me through one too, because I met his mother, I met his ex-wife, I met his daughter, all within the first 3 weeks, which was very, very transparent. And that was something that I needed. And, you know, it meant a lot to me. So when he came to California, I did the same thing. He met my mother, my grandmother. I'm sorry, my grandfather, my mother, my uncle, and they interviewed him. I had my best friends meet him. My sister met him. He met the kids. And so that was our premarital observation, not so much counseling, but we did, you know, introduce one another to the family and give ample time. Like I said, with his mother, one-on-one without him, and we talked. And she's a minister. She has a doctorate degree and all sorts of things. So she interviewed me.
Right. There was an official interview.
Yes.
Interview. So
Yes.
would you suggest, I know you said you met, and then a couple of weeks later, you were engaged, and then, you know, a couple of months later, you were married. Would you recommend that to a couple who is dating? No. Your head didn't before I started. Before I finished.
I have a different view.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have a different view. I think if you truly led by the Spirit to do it, like if you wait, you know what I'm saying? You got to look at those red flags. You got to weigh those options to see if it's even worth, you know what I'm saying, your time or what you have to give at that moment. So I believe if you really wait on God and you really are where you need to be spiritually,
Right.
thing you can like that because you know it's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that just the mere fact that it moved so quickly, but there was no, as you guys stated, no physical, you know, things going on, physicality, you know, physicalities or whatever, hooking up, whatever the case. It had to be something from an energy level or a vibe or spiritual, obviously, a spiritual level, obviously, but also that connect, you know, just an instant connection. So in respect to that, I don't think it's anything wrong necessarily with moving quickly in a relationship when you automatically feel that person's spirit. It's just what it is. You just feel that person's spirit, and it's just that instant spiritual connection that you have with one another. So my own personal opinion is no, I don't see anything wrong with it at all.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I see greatness in it. I can, you know, Now, my question would be, obviously, it didn't allow for you guys to really map out or set a plan for after the, moving forward. You guys were kind of just going with the flow. Did that have an effect on you later on? Later in.
Now that
before you actually got married, were you guys individually thinking about like, wow, okay, we are moving kind of fast. Maybe we should take a break and reconsider some things.
You can answer first.
So I want to add that on our first date, we also prayed. And mind you, I was dating someone. So we weren't praying about us being together. We were just praying about the connection because it was so strong. And we had a lot of things in common, including our goals and what we wanted to do for God's kingdom and, personal aspirations and things like that. So we prayed on our first date. And even though the engagement was very quickly, we fasted. The week before he proposed, we fasted together. So all those things were in sync. And I think that's what kind of catapulted us to feel like, you know what, I'm just taking the leap. So we took the leap. I forgot the question just because I wanted to go back to emphasize that.
I need to slow down.
Oh, well, you know what? I didn't start feeling like maybe we moved too fast into all hell broke loose. When we started having issues, it was like, well, wait a minute. Like, you don't know me and I don't know you. What we doing? Like, hold on. By now we living together. By now, everything is like, he didn't pack up his whole life and move from one state to another. But I'm like, you can get on the plane and go back.
Right. And it's funny that I'm glad that you said that you didn't think it was too soon until all hell broke loose. And that's usually what happens when we do not prepare, when we aren't prepared, when we go to premarital counseling, when we aren't being advised of what the possibilities are, right? When we just jump in that thing. And I don't think that it's a good or a bad thing. I stand on it depends on the couple, like what works for you, right? Because I know couples, you included, but I know a couple that same thing, it went really fast, but they've been married over 15 years. Did they have they had their ups and downs? Absolutely. Who doesn't, right? And so I personally, I'm sorry, you said you've been married how long?
Almost 4 years.
Okay, almost 4 years. So you're still learning each other. It's still not that it's new. Oh, we went dark. Not that it's new, but you're still learning each other. I know why. And so even in you learning each other and learning different things about, how you feel about different things. So we're talking about divorce. Did you guys, because you did not have premarital counseling, did you have the divorce conversation? Did you talk about divorce being or not being an option? Was that something that you talked about?
Well, for me, it's not something I wanted. So I said that this is for life. The only way I'm leaving this is in a body bag or a box, kind of box. So that was pretty much my standing on it. I knew rough times would come. It's not my first rodeo, so I just made up in my mind that I was going to. But going back to the thought of it even coming up is that like when a man do search and find his thing, you also have to plan, like you said.
Yeah.
Find something and just think you just gonna move in, and you have to finance in order, at least a plan for it, at least. All types of things have to be, or divorce would become an option because of unstable foundation. So for me, going in, I wasn't able. I got the word that yes, it was a yes, but it was also wait. You know what I'm saying? He told me yes and to wait. There was some stuff that I had to prepare for. Therefore,
He didn't tell me that God told him wait.
That God told him what?
wait.
I
We just heard the yes, and but God also told him wait, and so he didn't tell me that until after the fact.
Until after you got married.
Yeah, well, God told me to wait, and I'm like, well, why didn't you wait?
tell her what happened. You started praying and stuff, and
Well, I mean, the way everything happened, it did fall into place with the arrangements for him to come and, walking away from one job and getting another job. Like all that was smooth at the beginning. But it's like we said, for both of us, nobody gets married thinking divorce, right? You don't get married thinking how's it gonna end or what if it ends. One of the things that was like my epiphany was when I read the scripture that says, in marriage, there will be trouble. I had never read that scripture before. And all my studying and preparing that I thought I was doing for marriage, I don't remember that scripture. So you don't know what your trouble is going to be until you're
Yeah.
in it. You don't know what the worst is going to be. You don't know what the horror is going to be until you're in it. And you almost can't even plan or prepare for that. And I think that because we didn't take enough time to get to know each other, here we are now in these roles, trying to get to know each other, but trying to operate from our role and still build a friendship at the same time. And it was a lot. So the idea of no, we didn't get married to get divorced. Divorce became an option because it was like, okay, maybe we did this way too fast, and we need to just go our separate way.
Right. And that's, you said that you don't prepare, you don't know, you can't prepare for it, right? And no, you can't prepare for the circumstance. So there is no preparing for the circumstance because we don't know what's going to come in the marriage. And all we know is that the word says there will be trouble, right? So the only way that we can prepare for that as Christians, the only way that we can prepare for that is keeping God at the forefront of our marriage, is keeping him as our foundation so that we can hear him when we are encountering these circumstances that we aren't ready for, we didn't see coming, because sometimes we get blindsided by some things. And then there's times where you like, okay, I saw that coming, and I prepared for it. But how do you prepare for such hard incidents that are going to come in your marriage? You have to stay in your war room. You have to stay prayed up as the wife. You have to keep your head on the swivel, right? You have to make sure that you are the security guard of your marriage. Nothing should get in that building that you didn't see coming, and nothing should be let out unless you put it out. And sometimes there are things that we just have to evict from our marriage. Sometimes there's things that you have to like literally say, hey, you got to go, right? It may have been something that we allowed to happen in the beginning of the marriage, but as you grow in God and as you grow in the marriage as a union, there's just certain things that you have to recognize not being beneficial to me as a wife or to him as a husband. And so we have to say adios, goodbye, right?
Right.
So preparing for those times, for the circumstance, no, we can't prepare for a specific circumstance, but we can definitely prepare for hard times in marriage because the word says that we're going to have them. God is never going to set us up for failure, right? He's not going to do what the enemy would do. Like, okay, let me see how I can catch him up now. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what his weakness is. Let me send Shay his way that's going to say whatever or do whatever. Or let me send Tom her way. Whatever that thing is in your marriage that you are maybe not even struggling with, but it could be a weakness. It could be something that you tend to fall prey of, especially when we're vulnerable. And so when are we most vulnerable? When we're not on the same page, when we are thinking about throwing in the towel, and when divorce is an option. But when we are good and we're strong and we're having these conversations daily and we're saying, babe, it's me and you against the world, nothing and no one can come against us, it's not coming. It's not going to come our way, right? Because we're that 1 + 1 = 1 in marriage. We're showing that, we're being that example. And so those are the things that the enemy is intimidated by, right? So I always tell the couples that I speak to, be intimidating. Wake up every morning and intimidate the enemy. Make him shake because you guys woke up, grabbed hands, and you began to pray. First thing first, thank God for each other, pray together, right? Setting the foundation of how your day should go.
Right.
Yeah. And I just want to comment. We have some comments from one comment from Marie's son. She said, even when you're dating 3 or 4 years, it can be tough, and even with marital counseling. And Venus Chandler also she chimed in to bounce off of what Tamara was saying. She said, sometimes you prepare and it still be messed up.
Mm-hmm.
As much as you prepare, it can still be messed up.
Mm-hmm.
The situation, whatever it is. Your vibe, your connection, it can be messed up.
Right.
Your thoughts on moving forward, your thoughts on the marriage, your thoughts on trying to make things work, it could all be messed up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
yeah, those are
I
good
totally
comments.
agree. Great comments. Great comments.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if I can just add, when we talk about for better or worse, sickness and health, again, nobody thinks of the negative sides of that, right? We're all positive when you're making the vow. But I know for us, one thing that my husband was diagnosed with PTSD after we were married, right? He knew that something had happened in the military, didn't quite know what. And so that includes sickness and health, right? Because there's something going on that we weren't prepared for. And so now we have to navigate this thing and deal with how it affects him and how it affects me. You know what I mean? And how it affects all of us as something new and unplanned. And so I actually have to share, Tam, that one of our praying conversations is what made me realize that that's a part of sickness and health. You know what I mean? Because it's PTSD is mental, right, from his military experience. But when we think sickness, we think maybe if they get an accident and they can't walk no more. You know, we think these huge, outlandish things, but it's the little things, because sickness could be struggling with depression, which is something that I have struggled with. He had to learn to deal with, and so you're now navigating these issues that marriage is gonna make it all come out. Right. You can't live in the same house with somebody and be around them every day, all the time, and everything not come out. Anything that you tried to suppress or didn't deal with before entering the union is gonna come out in marriage. And either it's gonna blow up and it's gonna scare you off, or you're gonna have to buckle down, like you said, and pray. And even though we started off fasting and praying, we got away from that and we started fighting in and of ourselves. He was doing what he knew to do, and I was doing what I knew to do, and that included saying things, opening doors. You talked about evicting. We were opening doors through our word, what we were saying to friends, what we were saying, and what we were saying to each other. You know, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous because then you have to deal with the aftermath of that. You gonna eat your word. You know what I'm saying? And that's for real. Like you will see the manifestation of what you say you don't care about, but we gonna see if you care or not, because it's gonna happen.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's dangerous. Those words that you use, that you say to each other, you have to be mindful of that, because although you may say, forgive me for saying what I said, but it's out there now, right? And those words that are being said are slowly chipping away at what the marriage is supposed to be, or what it can be, or what it is, right? You may have an amazing marriage, and then there's something that you say that now have your spouse, like second guessing some things or questioning, why would you say that? Why do you feel that? And you may say, well, you know what? I was angry. I said that out of anger, but where did that come from? Like, there's a derivative of what we say. There's a derivative of what we do in our marriage, and so we have to be very mindful that we are thinking first and then speaking second. Think about the outcome, what is going to happen on the other side of this thing. I don't want to say anything that I'm going to be put in a position of having to explain every single time why I said that, or, because depending on the individual, the spouse, your spouse or the person you're dating, depending on them and how they receive things, they may be a person that receive and hold on, right? I may be someone, you could tell it to me, it may hurt me, sting a little bit at the time. We talk about it and I'm done. But you may not be that person. And so that could be the detriment of your marriage, of your relationship, of the growth that you should have on the table. And so when we talk about this thing, divorce, if divorce was an option for you two, but you removed it, what was the other option? I know it was to stay, but how did you work through that?
It was, the other options was separate. Like she said, she'd tell me to hop on a plane real quick, go back to Florida. go to the VA, to the mental ward to get checked out or something. It was always some options, you know. But let's see, you had any options? I ain't know about.
No, the option was get on the plane and go back to go on back to Florida.
Like,
Go on
that
back
was
where you
it. It
came
was either
from.
this or that. Yeah, you know what?
Um,
I wanted, you said something that reminded me of some reading that I was doing the other day. You said one of the options was to separate. Let's think about it. So in the Bible, there's couples that were separate on their thought process, right? They were separate on their thought process, yet they stayed together. So let's talk about Job and his wife. They were separate on their thought process because she was like, you need to curse your God, right?
Yeah,
Separate,
she said.
but they stayed together. You have Hosea and Gomer,
yes.
yeah, that were two different mindsets, but they stayed together, right? You have these couples that went through these different things, but they stayed together. And when we talk about divorce, who are we really divorcing, right? Who are we really divorcing when we remove ourselves from this thing called marriage? Are we divorcing the individual that we're with, or are we divorcing the promise, the commitment that we made with God?
Right.
That's deep.
And
That's deep. And
I
I think
say, hmm,
you can go ahead. I was going to just add I think we've come to that realization now, but that's after me filing for divorce 3 times.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see,
3 times.
thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for your transparency, because your transparency is going to be someone's road to recovery. I say that all the time. We're so afraid to put ourselves out there because we think people are going to think certain things. They're not going to look at us the same. They're not going to respect us the same. But I say that it's conversations like this that are necessary so that our viewers can know, you know what, it's not just us. We're not the only ones that go through things that's ready to throw in the towel, that, you know, it's like you could get to step in. No, it's not. It's everyone. Because like you said, Tanya, the word said that we are going to encounter some problems in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
Yeah, if I can just share, for a while, for a season, I struggled with, did I marry the wrong person? And we have a different mindset a little bit. Mine has changed some of, but we have a different mindset when it comes to the one and marrying the one versus there being a wrong one. And so God actually had me go into the word, and I read the story of Hosea and Gomer where he, you know, I won't get into it, but God told the prophet to marry a prostitute. So he told him to marry this woman knowing that she was going to be stepping out in her, right? And then there's the story of Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. Jacob wanted the beautiful sister, and he was given the other one. And so that could be to him, he married the wrong one. That's not who he wanted, right? So God just took me on this journey of studying and understanding. And I'm sure you've heard the quote. It's not a scripture, but a quote that says it's not about marrying the right one; it's about being the right one, and really asking yourself, for us as believers, am I doing what God told me to do? Before I just say I married the wrong one and it ain't working and throwing out the towel, let me get on my face. I mean, seriously, not the pity pat prayers, not the fake fasting, not the stuff that's fronting in front of people, but really getting the ugly cry out before God and looking at yourself. And so I know for me, having to look at myself, it wasn't pretty. Like I realized how selfish I was. And in my mouth, I have a book called You Talk Too Much, because he told me I talk too much, and God told me I talk too much, because my mouth was off the hook. It was slick, and even just speaking the wrong things to my husband and about my husband, and not realizing how detrimental it was then. So again, it just goes back to, we have to do a self check. Once you're in the covenant, like you said, I'm not just married to him. My covenant is with God. I made a commitment before God. This is his institution, and he has a design for how it's supposed to be. Am I walking that out? Am I doing what he said to do? Because if I'm not, I can't blame the husband, and I can't blame anybody else if I'm not doing my part as a woman of God and as a godly wife.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to say that connection that you guys just made, as literally you made a connection. The connection was between what Tamara previously stated and what she previously talked about, and what you just initiated, Tanya. Literally, you know, she posed the question, who are you really divorcing? Who are you divorcing? Are you divorcing that person, or are you divorcing that relationship with God, or that promise you made to God? And then Tanya, you went to proceed to talk about how you're not, you have to go outside of you. You know, you thought about like, okay, did I marry the right person? But then you said, you know, you had to turn around and say to yourself, you know what? Let me look at myself. Let me take a look at myself. Let me look in the mirror. Let me look in that mirror that Tamara's always talking about. Let me look in that mirror, not the window, but the mirror, and take a look at yourself. You have to really examine your own self and examine your own faults and your own, you know, the things that you bring to the marriage, you know, right, that may not be so great for the marriage. Right. So you have to really examine your own self in that respect. And just the mere fact that you guys decided to examine your own selves and deal with your own individual, you know, whatever you were going through, the things you were going through that created maybe like some division in your marriage. You had to decide, okay, you know what, let me re-examine what's going on with me, and let me talk to God. Let me seek his counsel and go to him and seek his counsel. And maybe it's not. Oh, go ahead, Ruff.
No, go ahead, bro. Finish. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just saying, maybe it's not that person. Maybe that person, like Tanya stated, maybe it's not that I'm married the wrong person. It's maybe that I'm not in alignment. I'm not in alignment. Exactly. I'm not in alignment.
Right, man. As the head, you know, it's hard when you have that being the head in the household, especially Christian. So for me, I even had to take myself out of the home for a season. You know what I'm saying? I went to the VA housing. You know what I'm saying? It proved to be worth it. You know what I'm saying? Like some people stay in the same household, but when it's toxic, you know what I'm saying? To the point that stuff is being thrown and, you know, waking up mad. And, you know, if y'all not sticking to, you know, those principles and really doing that work to ask God to create in me a clean heart, renew a right spirit within me daily before you deal with it. It's best that you probably do leave that environment or something of the sort. So I think it could prove to be a good thing and a bad thing on the mindsets of the people. You don't want to leave and then you get used to not sleeping next to your spouse and getting used to your own space and then y'all trying to get together. Now you got this whole my stuff, you know, my space, my time. Yeah.
So when what I'm thinking about is when you separate or when you remove yourself for a minute, like we got to regroup. We have to figure this thing out. It doesn't mean that sorry guys, it doesn't mean that you are separating from God. That's a big difference. It's a big difference when you come from under God's understanding, it's a big difference. Like like I said earlier, we may be separated on, our understanding about a particular thing, our thoughts about a particular thing, our way of doing something about a particular thing. But to come from under God's protection in that separation is where it gets dangerous, right? Because what happens in that is we open the door for the enemy to come. He's coming anyway if God allows it to happen. But what it does is open the door for the enemy to come in and begin to wreak havoc when you come from under God's covering and allow the enemy to come in and start planting seeds of division, right? So when I'm saying to my honey, like, babe, I just don't agree with what you're saying. I don't. Now it's time for me to seek God's counsel. It's time for me to go to my godly counsel, whoever God sends to me to talk to, this earthly counsel. Now it's time for me to do that and not just go to old girl, my home girl, that is probably that may not give me godly counsel. She may give me her experience counsel, right? And so if her experience counsel is, girl, just tell him to get back, hit the road, right? Then what God has for me, I'm not going to hear. And so, like you said, Tanya, being able to look in the mirror at myself, God is saying to me what Tam needs to do and not what Eric needs to do. And not only that, my God, not only that, God says, when you are in alignment with what I have told you to do and who I've created and designed you to be, what happens is the anointing that I've placed on your life is what heals the person that I've connected you with or to. And so the thing that, or those things that your spouse may be battling with, struggling with, or just doing, it may not even be a struggle. It may just be something that they do. It may be a habit, something that they're accustomed to doing. God says, if you are in alignment with what I told you to do, just watch my smoke. And I say that loosely. Just watch what I can do, right? Because you're focusing on you. And that's what he wants us to do in marriage. In marriage, it's not about us. It's about us making each other better, right? So we can't be selfish in this thing saying, well, I want this and I. No. How can I come into your life and make a shift? I mean, a mighty shift change. The only person that can do that in a man and a woman's life here on earth is their husband and their wife. You have people that can motivate them, that can encourage them, but it is that person that they see daily that is either the encouragement that is going to encourage them to become a better person because they are becoming a better person or they're being their best version. And so who wants to stick around someone that's leveling up and they just like, well, do you? It's either we're doing this together because light and dark cannot dwell in the same place, right? So God says that he is going to allow the wheat and the tares to grow together, right? So when he allow us to grow together, and we go into this divorce thing, when he allow us to grow together, and it's something that is not of him or something, one of the spouses have come from up under him, right? He says, I'll do the plucking. Sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves and we say, you know what, I'm done. We throw the towel in and God says, you were right there. You were right at the point of victory. You were just about to see a great move, right? I was right there, but then you stuck your hands in it. I don't need your help, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let me add about not needing his help. You know how when you have a child and they put their hand where it's not supposed to be, and sometimes you got to pop it. You know what I'm talking about. They reach up and you tap the hand. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me with the filing of the divorce. I mean, each time something happened to block it, something happened to, it was like I was doing it and wasn't listening to nobody who was trying to pray and calm me down and speak the word. And it was what it was, and I wasn't listening to him. He told me at one point I didn't have no biblical reason to divorce him. It shut me up for a moment, but I still went to go file my papers. Like I was like, I'm filing my papers. Like I left work early the last time to do it, and just determined. But COVID stopped the last one, if I could just be transparent, because the courts closed. The day that I was going to do my due, the courts was closed. And then it was closed for months after that. And within that time frame, God did a work on both of us. So that he will, that's the amazing thing about God is he doesn't need our help. And if we will just obey him and stay in alignment, but not just that, he will also pop your hand, get you back in line. Like, I didn't tell you to do that. Go sit down.
He's our father. He's our father, and he will definitely chastise us. And he was definitely send us on time out. Yeah, he will. It's like whatever you would do to your child. Now, just imagine, as humans, we love our kids and we punish them. But we still love them. It's unconditional. So why wouldn't our God do the same for us? Like he already knew what was going to happen before it even happened, right? God sent his son on the cross to die for our sins that we hadn't even committed. But our kids, we don't know that they're going to maybe spiral out of control or start, having sex or drugs or whatever. And so we begin to, address it as we see it, right? And God says, I addressed it before I see it. God says, and that's the type of faith I need you to have. Address your husband or your wife, the one that I created, the way that I designed them to be. That's who I want you to speak to, and not what you see. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so this is super, super, super needed, you guys. I'm telling you, your transparency is just amazing. It's awesome. We've been blessed to have couples to come on and not be afraid to just share, because they understand the vision. You know, the vision is to create a platform where we're changing the minds and the definition of what people have, you know, what they're saying that marriage is. And it's just as a result of what they've seen, you know, how they grew up or what they've read, or, you know, the songs that's out there. We got to be careful with what we're reading. We have to be careful with what we're listening to, these movies, these shows. All of that plays a major part in our mindset, our shift, the things that we begin to do, we like, we don't like. You know, I may like a plain Jane guy, but then I began to watch this show on TV and the dude is doing all these things. And I'm like, okay, so now the expectation, right? When I look at my husband, it's like, okay, so what you gonna do with that, right? Like you gonna change that up without even having the conversation with him. Like, babe, I know 7 years ago when we got married, I enjoyed watching you do whatever said thing is, but here we are today, and I want to change it up a little bit. We're afraid to have that conversation, but what we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure, and that's why I always say, do a report card, quarterly, but most definitely on your anniversary. On your anniversary, sit down and talk about what happened in the past year. What are we going to keep? And what are we going to remove? And how do we make it better for the next year? And that's just making a vision, writing a vision, making it plain. Because as the head, as the leader, as the protector, as the guide, men, your job is to show us what we are to follow, right? And if you are with a woman who is an alpha female, a woman that's very strong and opinionated, you have to know how to deal with that. Not deal with, I hate that term, but you have to know how to cultivate that thing, right? And that may come with you having to do some shifting. Yes. And we have the conversation all the time.
Literally all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I'm actually laughing, because that conversation is like one of the main conversations we have. It's one of the key topics we talk about, and it's so important. Mm-hmm. It's so important as men. I mean, and Raphael, you can attest to this. We go through struggles with that. We go through struggles with just trying to maintain mm-hmm. that strength, maintain that cover. We want to be that covering, mm-hmm. but we're going through our own struggles. We're going through our own trials and tribulations. So it's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of maintain that, especially like I said. And I would fair to say, like most women, most women I'm familiar with they have that alpha woman, stance. They're very strong women. Yeah, very strong, very opinionated. They tend to stand out over their men sometimes, not purposely, but they just, because they're so outgoing, they're so outspoken, they're so they just have this aura about them that's so we as men have to kind of, like she said, we have to cultivate that and respect that, but we also have to remind ourselves that we are the head. We continue to be the head. Mm-hmm. We continue to be the head. She helps us with directing. Your wife, your better half, she's going to help direct your path, but you're still the head. Right. You still have to lead. There's still a leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the guests, they commented on, not the guest, I'm sorry, somebody commented on that, being the leader, right. Making sure you're leading by example, leading the charge, basically.
I would say that, when you are in a relationship and your wife she has that personality, that strong personality, the leadership, she has all of those things. It's not a negative. I would say to the husband, to the man, you need to go to God and ask him, how do I, right? Because if you don't go to God and ask him to show you how to do this thing, your frustrations, your, feeling like she is
like that to that
at the knees. Yeah. It's going to come out. And it's going to come out in a way where now we're arguing and we're fussing, when it can really be done in a loving way, because God will show you the same way with us as women. He'll show us how to relax a little bit, right? I've given you someone as your covering. I've given you someone that is going to lead. And I know you probably don't trust what you see, but do you trust me?
Right.
You may not trust what you see in him, but do you trust me and what you know that I can do, right? And that goes back to what you said, Tanya, looking in that mirror and not out the window. God says, trust me, I got this, I got this. He says, and when you line up, and I'm working over here, or I'm working on him, I'm working on you, but I'm working on him. And you guys are going to come to a point where you're coming in like this, right? You may be here, but you're going to come like this because you're giving me the opportunity and the yes to do the work on both of you simultaneously. And you can't do that. You can't work on you and him and the marriage. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot.
Yeah.
I like to add to that. We're both alpha spirited, heavy. So for me, one thing I had to realize is that, when I think of Adam back in the garden by himself, and the reason why God said it wasn't good for him to be alone. He could obviously do things by himself. Certain things he could lead and do everything. But when I had to think about it, I was like, okay, alpha shouldn't necessarily lead the marriage as the man. Help. Helping could be a lot. It can come in a lot of different forms. It can look like a lot. So I had to understand that. Yeah, I'm not alpha, like she's an alpha too. We both got this quality, but I have to learn to accept that help.
Right.
And then if I accept the help, I can learn a little better. Sharpen my skills, and then maybe I can lead better.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a challenge. I'm not gonna lie. Strong spirit and will. So it took some learning hardships and a lot.
And we're still learning. We're still learning. If I can add too, for me, I would go to God like he in my way. Like I'm trying to run with my purpose. I'm trying to serve you, worship you, minister to. I'm trying to do mission trips, and he talking about what I wore to work today. Like I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I was like, God, he's hindering me. He's preventing me from doing what you call me to do. So if he gonna be a hindrance, move him out the way. And God, the whole time was like, no, I just need you to simmer down. I need you to trust me. And it's like you said, trust that he's in the position to cover, but God is over him. And if I would just stay in alignment and go into God and watch my response, watch my demeanor, that God is I'm not going to miss my purpose because my husband said I can't speak at that event or I can't be on that show. You know what I mean? Like I have to trust that just like I hear from God, he hears from God too. And I have to trust God in that. Like, okay, and if for some reason that's not the way it should go, trust that God is going to show him that and tell him that. And you know what I mean? And things will turn around. And that was challenging. That was challenging, especially being, and I have to add that I was a single mother for 18 years. I mean, I had a brief marriage within that time frame, but that didn't last long. It didn't go well at all. So all I know is being independent. All I know is looking out for me and looking out for my children. And so any hint of anything against that, and you a threat. If you threaten my stability and my ability to move forward, you think I'm a runner. I would run. I'm gone. Peace. Like I could do this on my own. I've been doing it on my own anyway. And so learning to submit, learning to surrender, learning to even accept help. He can share that I didn't like that. We're married and I didn't want to ask him for money. Like we married. Like you don't want to ask him for $100 for the light bill? Like, no, I didn't. And I would figure it out and do what I needed to do and have my little hustles on the side legit. But even now, that's hard for me to say, hey, this is what I need. It's hard, even to accept gifts. And gifts is it's my secondary love language. But even to receive it, it's like, well, the mindset has been there's an ulterior motive. Why are you giving me that? Why are you doing that? What you want from me? So we have to unlearn what we've learned from relationships that didn't work, from whatever our life was. For me being a single mom, we have to unlearn it and really it really is the process of two becoming one. So we are becoming, and
We are
in that,
becoming.
things are
Right.
falling off. We're being
Yes,
pruned.
things
We're being
snatched out.
molded. Yeah, some things are snatched off. I mean, just
Friendships.
friendships. Yeah, friendships change.
Yeah.
All that. Jobs. Sometimes you got to walk away from the job. Like
Yeah.
it's a process, but
Mm,
it's a refining process.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I love that you said you're becoming, right?
Right.
Because in becoming, there's a whole lot. In becoming is the process. And I always say, it's not the goal that we learn from. We don't learn from the goal. We don't learn from the end result. Let me say that. It's not the end result that we learn from. It's the process that we learn from. I learned how strong I am. I learned my likes and my dislikes. And I learned what my triggers are. I learned that I'm either coping or I'm healed. Like there's so much that you learn in the process. The end result is just the reward of getting through, of making it through that process. And so that was a very good thing that you spoke about, Tanya. I appreciate that. But we are at the hour right now. Is there anything before we wrap this up? Is there anything that you guys want to tell or say to the viewers as it relates to divorce, having that option?
Go check
What,
out Miss Tam's book, Marriage
Yeah, marriage policies and procedures. So
Procedures.
we're about halfway through the book, and we are creating because we're rebuilding.
Awesome.
We're still
Awesome.
healing over all the hurt, that we cause one another with our words and deeds, and so we are developing our policy.
Yeah,
nice.
it's been fun.
It's definitely a tool. A lot of gems and nuggets in that. And if I can add, like the topic says, divorce is an option. It's always an option,
Right.
but it doesn't have to be a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God gives us options.
Yeah.
You can either be saved or not. Now, he's not going to
Yeah.
force us. So to say, because I've heard some people say, no, divorce is not an option. I'm like, actually it is.
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
choose for it. You choose to say no to it, but it's actually
Right.
an option. There's
Yeah.
some things that I used to say it. I used to say, no, divorce is not an option. That's not something we're just gonna push through this thing, and then voila, I'm a divorced woman, right? So it was an option.
Right.
It was an option. But yes, thank you so much for going through the marriage policies and procedures. It was written by myself as a result of saying, I need to put something out there that I needed when I was in the valley or when I was going through. And I want to share my experience. I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not, I don't feel no type of way like I shouldn't be sharing it. I share what God tells me to share. There's a lot of stuff that's not in that book because God told me no, right? And as I attempt to be obedient to him, because I know what happens with obedience. With obedience, blessings flow. With obedience, doors are open. With obedience, you find where you align with what God wants you to do. And so, again, there's some things that's not in the book. But what is in that book, if you use it properly, will be an assistance, a companion to getting you to the next level in your marriage. So thank you both so much for going through the process of creating and designing your own policies, because those were my policies. Those were things that I went through. But it was also just to give you hope, and say, hey, now create your own. What works for you in your household,
Right.
So thank you.
Congratulations to that.
Yeah, and congratulations for pushing through and working through that.
Yes.
Congratulations for saying, no, we will not divorce.
Yes.
I know you tried it a few times. What they say, you tried it.
Tried it.
But clearly God blocked it, and so he blocked it for a reason, and I'd ask you to ask him, if you haven't, why. Show me the why. You blocked it for a reason, and I want to do whatever that reason was. I want to fall in line with what it is that you would have for us to do with those experiences. And so I pray that God continues to bless your union. I pray that you continue to hear from God, and sometimes we have to tell ourselves, let me sit self down and allow God to stand up. I pray that every time you sit down to have those uncomfortable conversations, that before you do anything else, you pray and you invite the Holy Spirit in. I pray that you trust God. I pray that you allow him to sit as your third party and that you leave other folks out unless God sends you somebody. I pray that you continue to go and grow to the next level. I speak nothing but life over your marriage. You will be healed. It will be healed. You know, the enemy wants to see it die, but I claim victory over your marriage today, tomorrow, and forevermore. God says that he is in it. If he is in it, there's nothing that can be done or said that is going to break it, right? You may be shaken. It may bend a little bit, but it's not going to break because God says, I am in it. And so I say again to you, blessings on top of blessings on top of blessings in your marriage.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank y'all for having us.
Absolutely. And we must do this again. We must do it again.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Most definitely.
God bless
All
your
right.
marriage.
Thank you
God
to
bless
our
you both.
viewers. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate you, and we ask that you like and share this video. And if you are watching the replay, please press type hashtag replay in the comments. Let us know that you were here. And we love you all. God bless. See you next time.
God bless.